Hi, everybody. This is Jennifer Ramsey. Some of you may not have even met me because we hire adjuncts from all over the place, but I'm the department chair for communication, and I am so happy to have you on board. So welcome. I am here today to kind of explain a little bit to you about how we're using our course shells right now, and the Master Course Initiative. I'm making this for Public Speaking 1315 because it's our most common class. Some of you may be seeing this who are teaching another class for us. If that's the case, I'll work on one for your specific course, but this has a lot of stuff in here that applies to everybody. So welcome, and we're going to look at what is next in the future of communication and your role in our master course process. The main thing I want you to know about the Master Course Initiative is that this has been in process for a while. And so I need you to understand why we are moving to standardized master courses, because there's a lot of legitimate questions, especially in higher education, that brings up. So we're going to talk about the Master Course Initiative that this department has taken on in general terms and why it's here. We're going to look at our position in the core curriculum for Odessa College and the state of Texas and why that matters. Some of you already know that, some of you don't. We're going to look at what we call the ACGM and workforce skill requirements and how they relate in particular to this class. And that'll matter to you by the end of this presentation, if you don't know what it is now. We're going to look at some of the institutional requirements. Okay, this one's done until I can fix that. Okay, caught a little typo there that could make a difference in interpretation. Institutional initiative compliance, which is a big part of why we went to this program as a department. And we'll talk a little bit about dual credit and then answer the question that I'm sure is pressing everyone's mind as we steer through this transition, and that is, what about academic freedom, which really is important, and we'll tell you more about that as it moves along. First of all, the Master Course Initiative, this is just a term I'm using. It's not one that has officially been dubbed, but it's something that has emerged. It really began in the fall of 2014. So everything that you're going to see in your course shell, we kind of started trying and testing at that point. And it grew out of the fact initially that we had a very small department and we were being asked to teach a lot of classes. We wound up with a staff shortage. And so I had to very quickly train some instructors. And so we just started copying courses. Well, pretty soon some things began to happen with our position in the core, which I'll talk about soon, and also with some institutional things that were going on. And so master courses became the norm and not the rule over this period of time. So we aren't the only department that's doing this. Basically, any course that's in the core is going through a master course initiative, and that department's all doing the same thing. So, and there are some reasons we'll get into. But basically, overall, what I want to tell you with this course is that these assignments that are in here were not all done by me. I put them together sometimes, or I built certain modules, but they have been used by everyone that teaches Speech 1315 has used one of our master course shells, and I think everyone on our present staff has used this course shell in some format, save one or two of you maybe. But what we did was we looked at what everybody was teaching and doing, and then we put the full-time faculty together, and everybody is teaching off of this shell and refining it and changing things. I don't like this assignment, this one's better. So we pulled from our best practices, and mostly among the full-time faculty. However, adjuncts, we did peer into what you're doing and tried to incorporate some things you do. So you'll probably see some things, if you were taught online Force, particularly, that you think, oh, that looks familiar. It's probably something we adapted that we saw you were doing. And then we started looking carefully at when did students drop our course and when were they more successful. And so we pulled from these best practices, and we used those. The other thing we did was, those of you who don't know, haven't been through our full-time faculty training, or don't have current K-12 experience, there's a program called Academic Achievement via Individual Determination. Very present. It starts in grade school and runs all the way through college. And it's designed at instructional strategies that are the best fit for reaching first-time in college students and first-generation college students. So a lot of us that have been teaching, especially at the K-12 level for a while, will look at some of those strategies and go, well, yeah, we've been doing that for years under different names. So it's kind of a best teaching practices strategy set. There's a lot of engaged learning stuff. It was active learning theory for a while, a lot of cooperative learning if you came through those areas, process writing. If any of that rings a bell for you, that's all included in AVID strategies. But they're the best teaching practices nationwide. And what we've tried to do is adapt them to public speaking. And in particular, this course is designed as an online course. Although you might be using it in a hybrid or seated class, it's designed to bring AVID live and home. So getting past the notion of we're going to read a chapter and take some test questions and asking them to do something with that information, take it a step further. So instead of reading about the communication model in this class, they build one or draw one, and then they talk about how that fit their thing. And then they take a picture of it and they send it. So we're trying to bring that feel of active learning home. And it will put your students into shock. We'll talk a little bit about that. But they usually wind up really coming up with a fruitful reflection when they've made it through the class. The other thing is if you haven't taken Blackboard 101 or QC2 yet, those are our newest trainings in Blackboard. Everything in this course shell is there. It's designed to make sure that this course is 100% compliant with those initiatives. So it can be a little overwhelming if you're new to teaching online or you're new to OC. So you don't have to worry, is this course compliant? If you teach it out of the box like it is, you're compliant. The other thing that's going on currently is we have had a lot of students who simply are not buying their textbook, up to 40% of our students. So you heard about that if you've gone to some of the 2016 training, which is the time period in which I'm recording this. But we're basically taking steps to reduce the cost or eliminate the cost of textbooks. Originally, the course book that we were using for this a few years ago had gotten up to $175 new. And it was going to go up further. And so we got a $40 one that we were using for a while. And then as we began talking to each other about our coursework, we felt like this particular course is more a skill-based class, and we would rather surround them with high-quality public speaking experiences than have them read about them. So you're going to notice that in this particular course shell. The final thing I want to let you know is this is an ongoing process. We're going to be revising the master course always. So next semester, you'll get a new shell and there'll be some minor changes. And so you're part of that dialogue and we want to include you in that. If you see things that are working or you would like to see improved, talk to your course specialist and or to me and we'll listen. I mean, this is not anybody's turf. We definitely want to continue collaborating and give our students the best chance for success. For those of you who don't know, there's always an initiative to take communication classes out of the core. They seem to hit the chopping block in cycles of about 2 to 5 years constantly. At the state level, we've got really good people that advocate for that. But in 2013, we had to go through quite an overhaul to make sure our courses stayed in the core. And what the core is when you hear a student saying, I need the basics, I need to get my basics. It's the basic level of instruction, the core instruction that we want them to have. So our position in the core was threatened both at the K-12 level and at the institutional level and at the state level. And so we've worked really hard to make sure our course is core compliant. And we've gone through several applications and there's some things this course has in it that ensure that. But it's been a long, arduous process to get there and to stay there. So for that reason, you're going to see some different things if you've been teaching speech a while. And one of those things is a heavier emphasis on academic research than some courses may have taken. We really have to introduce these students to academic literature. And so that's in some of our speech letter and some of our other assignments. So that's going to be a new thing. Keep in mind that some of our students now, because of the way the course is constructed, may not be taking English 1302, which is Comp 2, probably the class you took and wrote your first research paper in college in. We are that class for some programs. They have to choose between speech and English because the core was reduced. And for those that chose us, they're saying, well, we're going to do one English class, but we're going to trust the communication department to bring research into the second one. It's not all of our programs. It's mostly our workforce programs. But students who are college transfer bound, we try to really encourage the English 1302. But you just need to realize that student may never take Comp 2 and it may be your responsibility to teach them how to do research. And we said, yes, we'll take that on. Please keep us in the core, because that translates to we get to be employed too as well. We want the best thing for students, but we are speech teachers and we need to prove why we need to be here. And that was part of it. The 4 components to the core that we cover are communication, obviously, and particularly oral communication, critical thinking, personal responsibility, and teamwork. So some of the assignments you may look at and you go, like, why are we doing this? Well, it's probably related to one of those things if it isn't in your traditional speech repertoire. And then the final thing is core courses have to be assessed, and they're assessed institutionally. At most places, that's a really yucky, arduous process. Our institution has made it very easy. It's almost automatic. And I'll guide you through how that works. But basically, you're going to have your students cut and paste 2 of the assignments that they've already done in this class. They're not speech assignments. There's a reason for that I'll go into later. But they are written assignments. And they're easy to assess in these areas. And it takes the work away from you. So, and that's something that is very important. So a lot of our other assignments lead to those assessments. It's very important that we keep everything in this course that's there, or replace it with something else if it's not working. I'm not going to go through these, but just know where they come from. Most of you taught this course, but the ACGM is the academic course manual for the state of Texas, and that's what ensures this course can transfer. So in addition to those 4 core outcomes, we have to meet all 7 of these outcomes. So make sure you're very familiar with those, but these are throughout the course shell. I don't want to read them to you. You're capable of reading them on the screen, but the ones that matter that may not make a lot of sense is audience analysis. That was very difficult to put into an online context. That is why you're going to play with Twitter. We're going to use Twitter as a search engine and audience analysis tool. And then the ethical speaking, we're using Freedom Writers to accomplish that. And you'll see that in that assignment. The research process is through our speech ladder. The effective use of technologies, teaching them strong PowerPoint presentation skills, and also some things with uploading speeches and using Microsoft Word and things like that come through. And then how culture, ethnicity, and gender influence communication is in here. So again, we're using the Freedom Writers movie for that. And how to develop proficiency in a variety of speeches. Each of the formal speeches they give is either narrative, informative, or persuasive, and so that's built in for you. So we have to meet these compliance, these outcomes. Otherwise, we no longer are transferable and we may lose our accreditation. So these have to be met in your course. There's some other institutional initiatives. I'm not going to go into these in depth either, but just know that the assignments in here are made to make this course compliant with drop rate improvement. You've been through adjunct training on that, but basically that's about building a relationship with your students. So there's opportunities in these courses and in these assignments to engage your students and interact with them, and they're built in for you, and you can obviously do more, but there's some places where we're going to tell you, make sure you're talking to them about this. This course fits very beautifully into an 8-week format, which is what most of our courses are. If you're dual credit, you're going to double that. Our newest initiative is 2 by 2 by 2, which means students are constantly taking 2 courses basically to get through more quickly, and only 2. So we're working on that. Then we have alternative credit, which is brand new. This is a credit recovery type of program. So because this courses are master courses now and they're standardized, if a student fails one module, say module A, but they pass everything else and they don't wind up passing the class, we're able to then put them in a credit recovery class and they can pick up where they left off. There's some specific things that go around that, but that's why we have to go to standardization. And then open educational resources. This is part of going text-free. We've taken that step, but eventually we want to be an OER course. And we are not right now, so don't refer to us that way. There are some things related to dual credit you need to know. First of all, 60% or more of our students are dual credit. So you are likely to get that. We're going to work in this course shell with making sure that our courses are 6 weeks grade aware and reporting. So you'll see some things from me on making your students aware, hey, we're going to be grading on 6 weeks here. And then dual credit may run 16 or 18 weeks depending on where you're at. So we will talk about that as the course progresses. And then we'll talk about some common issues as the course progresses, but here are some up front we know.